I found after Harvey and after other disasters that hotels that you might look on their site, it says no dogs or dogs, $100 a stay. If you call during a time of emergency, you'll find that those rules are often waived.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that when people here on the coast had to leave for Harvey, I called ahead at a hotel chain, and they had limits on animals, but of course they were saying I could bring my animals. And I told them, I don't know if this hurricane is going to come or not. We don't know if we're going to evacuate. They allowed me up to 6 o'clock in the evening on the day I reserved to cancel without penalty.
Wow, that's
so
great.
That was yet another rule that was waived. So don't say to yourself, gee, the hotel won't take animals, and if I don't arrive, 2 days before the hurricane, I'll have to pay. No, give them a call. See if you can set this up in advance, because they know that we're their friends and neighbors, and they want to help us.
Yeah.
So just pick up the phone and make those reservations. And if you think your animal's not going to do well in the room with you, then make a reservation at a boarding facility.
Yeah. I know it was so stressful for us. I think it was a couple of years ago when that hurricane, it was going to hit over on the other coast, and then it came over to the Gulf Coast, and it was heading straight for us, and it was a category 3 or a 4. And it was my first experience with a hurricane. And it was because we didn't know it shifted, And so do you evacuate? Do you not evacuate? And we were just coming back from New York. We were driving down I-75 as people were evacuating. That's how close we were to getting home and trying to figure out what to do, and having to board up the house, and because we don't have hurricane shutters. And then, I had thankfully bought crates. So I had 4 crates for all the dogs, and I had them in the closet all set up because, I don't have a big house. To find that safe place in the house was even hard, but you had to think. And after going through that, I just realized there's a lot of things to think about. And if you can't evacuate, or if it's too late, then you have to know where your nearest shelter is, and do they take pets? But like you said, how these hotels allowed a change in their rules, we found that the shelters did too, because there were only X number of pet-friendly shelters. But as the storm was coming closer and closer, and it became more of an emergency for people to evacuate, because everybody thinks, oh, it's fine, I'll stay in my house, all of a sudden every shelter was available for pets, but you don't know that. So you have to be prepared just in case, but in that case, they opened every single shelter to pets, but you have to have your crate, and you have to have everything you need. Like you said, your shot records and, all your shots in order before you go. So it's really important. And this pet preparedness thing is really something that everyone needs to take seriously, especially this time of year.
Well,
right?
Yes. And it sounds like a pretty frightening experience that you had.
Oh my gosh. I swear I had PTSD.
I imagine,
oh my God. Afterwards.
It
was terrible.
It must be, is it easier now knowing the things that you learned just from that process?
I don't know. I mean, I honestly was terrified. I went and I had my whole family here, all the kids and my grandkids, everyone was here. And all I could think of was, what if the roof comes off the house, because it was a 3 verging on a 4, and it was heading straight for us, and, I was terrified. I just didn't know what to think. Because I had never been through one, but I just had seen pictures. And, we are close to the Gulf. We're just one street past the flood zone, literally. We have one street, and then it's the flood zone. So, but the one thing I kept in my head is a good thing, that the shelter nearest us was on my street. So I figured they would not put a shelter on my street if it was going to flood, because it was the elementary school, so that made me feel better. But
I think you could reassure yourself a little. But then I know somebody who didn't evacuate during I'm sorry, I can't remember the name, but the disastrous one that hit Homestead in Florida about over 20 years ago. Anyway, during that hurricane, she lived across the street from the edge of the evacuation zone. So she felt, well, I'm at the edge of the evacuation zone, no problem. And she has a boarding facility in San Antonio, and she hardly charged me anything to board my animals. And she said it was because they were so lucky to live through Andrew in Florida before.
Yeah.
So anyway, you just have to watch each one, and even not only so much the category, but what kind of a storm surge might be associated with it. But I think all this preparedness helps. I mean, the fact that you had your crates put together in your closet, at least you had your crates, and you weren't trying to assemble something at the last minute.
Right, because even if you're in the house with all the noise and whatever, you would imagine the dogs would be freaking out. And if you did have to leave, not that you could when it got to be that bad, but if something happened, you'd want to know where they were. You know, you'd want them in the crate, and you'd want them safe. So you at least knew where they were. That would be one less thing you have to worry about, you know.
Well, I know one reason we would always leave where I live on an island is that the sound of the storm, you can't explain it to your dog. Oh, this is only a Cat 1. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Because if they're storm phobic, they're going to be in the middle of the worst storm they've ever been in, and it's going to be 8 hours long. So you know, it would just be too much terror. So that's one reason. But the way they can turn quite rapidly, and you can be as in the situation as you were.
Yeah.
Where, oh, it's coming here now? How did that happen? So
yeah. And so, you know, even if it's on the other coast, we prepared just in case, and I think it was because we were hurricane newbies, I guess, you know, had never experienced it. And it was Irma. I couldn't think of the name, but it was Irma just a couple of years ago. Yeah. And I mean, that was a big one. And thank God, you know, it broke up right before, and it actually did more damage in Orlando, I think, than it did to us over by Sarasota and Anna Maria. So it's weird how they can just move around. But I remember a lot of our friends had made reservations like in states, Georgia and then Alabama, maybe they were going to evacuate. And then the storm turned and it went right that direction. So none of them went that way after it hit Florida. It ended up going up that way. So you just don't know what, you know, you just have to be ready and have some alternative plans, I guess. So
yeah, you do have to be flexible. I know that one of the things, I work with people online usually after a natural disaster, and especially after hurricanes, we try to get animals back to their owners. As you know, I do with Lost Dogs of America and Lost Dogs of Texas, and with the microchiphelp.com. And we have a domain name, hurricanepets.com. And we point that if I'm working with people who are trying to get animals back home, we set up a Facebook page. And right now we still have the one from Harvey, because that was the last hurricane where there were many, many animals separated from their family. Now, of course, animals have been lost in subsequent hurricanes and disasters, but I'm happy to say that was the last one of that magnitude. Anyway, that might be something your listeners would just want to take a note of, hurricanepets.com. In the event of a bad hurricane, we would be using that again. And we're always looking for volunteers to post and share flyers of missing dogs and cats.
Yeah. Well, Marilyn, we're just about out of time already. If you could tell everybody how, you know, they can look at your webpage and your microchip help and your Lost Dogs of Texas, that would be great.
Sure. Well, we have lostdogsoftexas.com, and we're working with helpinglostpets.com, which does free flyers for any type of lost or found animal. And the microchip hunters are at microchiphelp.com. And if you find an animal with a microchip and you can't get the animal home, then there's a form for you to submit. We work with shelters as well. And it's just an easy way to get somebody to do the detective work on a a microchip. For example, I had a cat this week where the microchip, somebody said, well, we don't even know what chip this is. I looked at it and I could tell it was from France. I contacted the chip ID company in France, and they sent me the name of the owner, who actually lives in the small town in Wisconsin. And now I'm just trying to get in touch with that person, because if they brought their cat all the way from France, I know they want to get that cat back.
That's right. That's right. Well, Marilyn, thanks so much for being with me today. I really appreciate it, and I always love talking with you.
It's always a pleasure, Patty. You're just so good at everything you're doing to help people hang on to their animals and then get their animals back if they get lost. And I really enjoyed talking with you too.
Thanks so much, Marilyn. All right, everybody, I want you to remember that a lost pet can't tell anyone where it lives, so please be sure your pet is microchipped and wearing their ID tags. And if it is chipped, be sure the chip is registered and up to date. Thanks for joining us today, and until next time, and keep your pets safe.